Well, folks, it's Farmer Tom here. It's Monday, it's day 8 of the Cheese of the Day Challenge, the beginning of week 2, and we're going to banish those Monday blues with another lovely lunchtime live tasting. And today we're joined by another cheesemaker, and this cheesemaker is particularly special. Now, all cheesemakers are special, I'm sure you'll tell me, but this one is particularly special because he is our partner in crime for the Cheese of the Day Challenge. If you ordered one of the cheese boxes, he will have dispatched it to you from his farm. So it's great today to be able to welcome cheesemaker Tim Jones of Lincoln Chipotle. Tim, thank you so much for being with us today for this tasting.
My absolute pleasure. Very excited to be part of it.
Oh, thank you so much. And Tim, you have really been a part of it. Do you want to just tell us a bit about the Cheese a Day Challenge journey that you've been on?
Well, you obviously suggested that you wanted to do a Cheese a Day Challenge and source loads of British and Irish cheeses. I know loads of British and Irish cheesemakers, and we obviously make cheese ourselves. So I was very excited to be able to source some amazing cheeses from across the country. And it's a real pleasure to share those with you and to those who are taking part. Everybody's really fired up by this. My family and all of us here are fired up because it's really fun.
Fantastic. It has been. It's been surprising how many people have been up for joining us. So it's really exciting to be able to welcome so many people from across the UK on this cheese tasting journey. So there'll be no prizes today for guessing, Tim. We're going to be tasting a Lincoln Chipotle cheese. But would you just introduce that to us, and perhaps also just a little bit of a history of your dairy?
Let me turn my phone around and I'll take you on a tour of the dairy. So I'll just walk you round our cheese store. We've got about 15,000 20-kilo cheeses sitting here at any one time. Obviously, when you keep cheese for up to 2 years, you have to have an awful lot in stock. So that's one half of the store. And then if we move through here, you've got the fresh cheese that have come in. You can see they haven't got the moulds on them. We've got a bit of Lincolnshire red there. That's our red Leicester style. And then more cheeses here. So it is like a cheese cathedral. It's about 95% humidity in here and about 12 degrees centigrade. You can see all the water on the floor. We put about 5 tons of water down every week just to keep the humidity really high. And cheeses get physically turned over once a week when they're young and then once a month when they're older. And we've got our newest employee, Florence the machine, and she turns our cheeses. She's not in operation today, but she turns all the cheeses over. And now we'll pop back to the office where we can have a look in the cheese dairy.
So, Tim, how long have the family been in farming? What's your dairy history?
So my family have been farming. We're 4th generation. So my great-grandfather he tenanted this farm in 1918. That massive picture is my family in front of the farmhouse in 1918 when they tenanted the farm. And my brother, Simon, who I work with, started making cheese 30 years ago, just under 30 years ago, in a tiny, tiny way. And we've slowly built that up. So now we're turning the majority of our milk into cheese. So we've morphed from a family mixed arable and dairy farm into a cheese business.
Oh, fantastic. Gosh. So it's in the blood. And you've been farming that land for a century now.
For over 100 years. Yeah, we celebrated 100 years 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago. So we had a lovely party on the farm, big marquee and stuff. So lots of fun.
I remember parties. Yeah, they were great, weren't they?
Yes. Yeah, do you? I've almost forgotten them.
Yeah, brilliant. Wonderful. So, Tim, maybe you could describe, because I think you produce a range of different cheeses. I have a package with a number 8 on it here. Perhaps you could tell me what we're going to be tasting today as I unwrap it.
So this is our vintage Lincoln Chipotle, and what we do is we taste all our cheeses at about 14 or 15 months, and the ones we particularly like that have that really rich, sweet, nutty flavour, lots of depth of flavour, we keep for up to about 2 years, and we call it vintage Lincoln Chipotle, and that is what we're tasting today. And this particular batch was made on the 16th of March 2019, so it's coming up to 2 years old, and it should have a nice, rich, full flavour.
Brilliant. Right. Well, Tim, I've got this fantastic looking cheese here. Just tell me what I'm looking at.
So what we're looking for with our cheese is a really firm body, a nice dry texture. If we get soft bodied cheese, we tend to get slightly wild flavours. And if we get these firmer bodied cheeses, you tend to get the lovely, rich, savoury, slightly sweet, nutty depth and length of flavour that we're really looking for. And when you try this cheese, hopefully that'll come through.
Brilliant. So this is the vintage Lincoln Chipotle.
Correct.
Well, let's get into it, shall we? You're tasting some your end, I think. And
I have got the same batch here.
What's on the nose?
So well, you've got a richness to it.
Mm.
And what we're really looking for is a nice long flavour that, often the difference between good and great is that length of flavour. So what you're left with at the end. So you don't want a big hit and then nothing at the end. You want it to build and build. You want depth and length of flavour, and you want those flavours to be dancing on your palate. And hopefully this does that. It's a really nice, slow, clean build. Fills the mouth, fills the palate. And it's all round. It's got a little bit of that sort of slightly itchy, top of the palate, itchy thing going on, which is, adds another layer. It's got lovely savoury notes. It's definitely got an alpine element to it, this particular batch. The batches vary. It depends what the cows are eating. Depends on that day's make. It's a handmade thing. The milk changes all the time, depending on the fat and protein and what the cows are eating. It's ever moving.
So if this cheese was made in the end of winter, beginning of spring 2019, what would the diet of the cows been at the time, and how might that impact on the taste?
So cows at that time would have been inside. They would have been, so we loose house the cows inside during the winter, and they get turned out to grass generally in early spring. So sort of around this time, funny enough, sort of late March typically. So they would have been on a winter ration. But we grow that most of ourselves. So grass silage, feed beet, beans. So a range of things that mostly we grow ourselves. As you get into summer, they're on grass, but we still feed a bit of this extra ration to balance the feed out. But that obviously on the grass, it does change the milk dramatically, particularly in early summer. That lovely lush spring grass gives amazing flavours. So
people ordering a vintage Lincoln Chipotle in the next few months will probably be getting some of the spring 2019 batch.
They absolutely will. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, it's a great time to be having that. Is an amazing flavour. And when I hadn't really understood my kind of layman's understanding of cheeses, do I like it or not? But when you talk about that length of flavour, you're right. Within the first second, it's starting to develop, and it just sits there with you. I had a Montgomery cheddar a little while ago, and it's the same. It kind of persists, and it's absolutely delicious. And when you say fills the mouth, it's great having somebody like you here to kind of help with that terminology, because that's exactly what it does. It's absolutely fantastic.
And what's interesting just now, I mean, it's probably 2 or 3 minutes since I tasted it, and still I've got that lovely clean finish. You don't want a bitter note on the end, and it's still there with you. If you just taste it and then wait, that's the sign of a cheese that we're really happy with.
Oh, fantastic. So 2 cheese related questions then. Firstly is, what would you pair your cheese with?
Okay, I'll give you 2 things. A general comment on our cheese particularly is sweet things. So most sweet, fruity things go with it. Traditional apples and pears, obviously. But sweet wines, not too heavy. I don't like port with ours. I think it's too heavy. But a sweet wine like a Merceau or Sauterne or something like that. So sweet flavors in general almost always work because it cuts through the acidity of the cheese. But I'll give you a curious one that I discovered when I was at the farmer's market, and that's watercress. You stick our cheese with just fresh watercress, that spicy, almost bitter note on the watercress works really well, oddly, with the cheese. I don't know what it is, but it's one of those combinations that just really works. I definitely suggest people try that one.
Gosh, I think I'll definitely have to try that. Another question, Tim. Now, last week I asked Johnny Crickmore of Baron Bygod, what's the most amount of your own cheese you've eaten in one go? Now, Johnny, I don't want to set the bar up. I don't want to lead you too much here, but Johnny thinks he's eaten 1 kilogram of his own cheese at one farmer's market on tastings.
Gosh, well, Johnny is a cheese eating legend. Although you wouldn't know how to look at him, he doesn't look as though he eats lots of cheese. I don't know. We've done tastings of my own cheese. I've done tastings where we've tasted probably 80 batches of cheese at once.
Wow.
And you probably do 10 grams a taste. Yeah, so probably close actually. Yeah, probably 800 grams. But I know cheese people who've done even more than that when they've been judging competitions. They've done 150 batches of cheese, which is that is going some.
Gosh, I mean, I'm a big fan of cheese, but I'd need a bit of a sit down after that, I think.
It's oddly exhausting tasting that much cheese because you're having to really concentrate as well on the flavors and really try and pick it apart. Because it is, although it's obviously enjoyable, it is work. You're trying to differentiate between them and decide how long to keep them and what to do with them.
Fantastic. Well, Tim, I'm not going to give you any rest because I understand that your office has a great viewing window into the cheese dairy. Would you just take us there and show us, give us a little tour?
Of course I will. Let me just turn the camera around and we're going to have a wander through. So you can see, actually, if I show you, you can just see the cows in their loose housing, just about having a feed through there. And then we've got the pipeline through to the dairy there. So the milk gets pumped over from where the cows are milked, and then it gets pumped into our cheese vat here. Here's John, our cheese maker, and the 2 pipes in the corner pump the milk in the morning, so that our vat holds 6,500 litres of milk, which was absolutely brimful this morning. And now we've drained the whey off, and we're left with the curd at the bottom, which John has been texturing, and he's just checking the acidity now.
I thought he was looking out the window, but he's checking.
Well, he might be, but it's pretty full on the day. He's got lots to do, so I suspect he's cracking on.
And how many cows do you need to produce 6,500 litres to fill that vat every morning?
So we milk 230 cows, and yesterday afternoon's milk gets cooled down, and then this morning's milk, warm and fresh, comes into the vat. And for us, that's the key thing, is having super fresh milk, because the milk hasn't broken down. It's a little bit like going into your garden and picking a fresh carrot. You've still got those lovely sweet flavours. The lactose hasn't broken down. So using the immediately fresh milk is one of the key things for making good cheese.
Well, you can't get much fresher than that. It's probably the food miles at the moment are about 20 yards. So that is amazing. So I can see the curds there. What happens from them till they get into the cheese room we were looking at earlier?
So we've drained the whey off. You're left with the curd. So that's the base of the cheese. At the moment, it won't taste of anything. It just tastes almost like scrambled egg, just very plain curd. So John's texturing it and getting the acidity up. So you acidify the milk to turn the lactose, the milk sugar, into lactic acid. In about an hour and a half's time, that curd will get put through this hopper head, this mill, and that mills it up into sort of finger-sized bits, onto which we throw the salt by hand, and we mix that salt in. So I'll go in and give him a hand and mix the salt in. And then once the salt's in, we put it in the molds, which I don't know if you can see just down there, those with the blue linings.
Yes.
So they go into the cheese molds. And then if you look at the far end of the dairy, that's yesterday's cheeses in the hoops at the far end. So there's 30 hoops. It looks like a long line of stainless steel, but actually they're individual hoops. And that's what gives the cheese its shape. So they go into 20-kilogram hoops.
Fantastic. And then, of course, day 2, they're moved into the cheese store for up to 2 years.
Well, we have, funny enough, we've just finished a batch that's 4.5 years old, but that's very unusual. Normally, we don't manage to keep it that long, and we get through it 3 years sometimes, but mostly 18 months to 2 years will be typical.
Oh, well, thank you, Tim. That's a fantastic tour. And quite frankly, I don't know how you managed to keep that lovely cheese there for 4.5 years. It was very difficult when the delivery came on a Wednesday to keep myself from eating it before the following Monday. So you're a much more patient man than I. So, but yeah, thank you for giving us the tour. It's been fascinating to have a look round. And I'm going to go full 10 out of 10. That's an absolutely fantastic cheese. Perfect for a Monday lunchtime pick-me-up.
Bless you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.